Welcome to Behind the Muscle podcast. Today's guest is a prep coach and NPC bodybuilder. Today's guest is Matt Burzacott. Matt, welcome back to the podcast, man.
Thank you for having me again. How often do you have people on for follow-ups?
Just kind of just here and there. It just kind of depends. Like I like to get guys on, if I've had them on once and then they're kind of going into like the nationals or USAs, I like to get them on before and then after. So it kind of depends. Kind of depends how cool they are and how down they are.
I was going to say you're supposed to say never. I'm the only one.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry, man. I can't lie. So there's a few guys that have been on, I don't know, 3, 4, 5 times. So
oh geez, I'm not your favorite. I thought I was your favorite because the Iowa connection, but I guess not.
Well, you know what? Cole Eastfold, I think, has been on 5 or 6 times.
Oh, and wow.
He's at least in the Midwest. He's in Minnesota. He's a good dude. So anyways, so
I'll accept that just because it's Cole.
Okay. All right. He's good people, right?
Yep.
All right. Okay. So Matt, so this is your second time on. So kind of like what I said before we hit record, I just kind of want to do a recap of 2022 because I think it was right around a year ago that you were on after you last competed at Nationals in 2021. So there's a lot that's unfolded, a lot's happened in your life, just a lot of awesome stuff last year. So I kind of want to do a recap. I want to kind of get into some nitty gritty, more life stuff than bodybuilding. We'll kind of get into some coaching stuff later, but after Nationals last year, I want you to kind of give us your mindset because I'm pretty sure you were gearing up to compete again last year and going after that pro card for however many times you've gone after it. And then you kind of had some things happen in life. So why don't you just kind of catch us up to speed from that point of after Nationals last year and what kind of unfolded to kind of change the course of your life, literally, last year after Nationals?
Yeah. A different mindset, or to talk about my mindset at that time. I'm glad you asked me that because everything happens so fast now. Like you mentioned, that's been a year ago already. And it's like, it seems like a few weeks. And so it's kind of forced me to think about how much different things are because my life is completely different. I mean, you could almost say I'm a completely different person too, now to a year ago, but my mindset at that time was just to refresh people. I had made a comeback again, my 3rd or 4th comeback after a long layoff, a couple-year layoff and a couple other big injuries. And we did Nationals in 2021. Best look I ever had, got 3rd. So, I missed my pro card by 1 spot for the 4th or 5th time. It doesn't really matter, but 4th or 5th time that happened to me. Been at it for quite a while. So my mindset was, I was reinvigorated or rejuvenated and excited because I really feel like I had a lot of traction and figured a lot of things out, bodybuilding wise, and my life was in a good spot. I'm very open about, the struggles I've had with anxiety and depression my whole life. I felt like I had turned a corner there. And overall, it was just in a really good spot. The one thing that I still had that was affecting my quality of life and quality of being a bodybuilder was the sleep apnea. And so I had a surgery set up to get that fixed. The surgery is called Inspire. It's a newer procedure. I think it started around 2017 or so. And they basically implant a device in you and then run a wire up to a nerve in your neck that forces you to stick your tongue out when you stop breathing. That keeps your airway open. And so people are always like, well, why don't you just wear your CPAP? And man, for guys that are able to wear their CPAP, good on you. Like I cannot. And I know that there's a lot of other people that feel that way. But I was supposed to have used a CPAP since I was 18 years old. I'm 37 now. So that's, my entire adult life, going on 20 years now of untreated sleep apnea. So, and anybody that has sleep apnea knows what that's like too. You can't stay awake. You're just constantly sleeping. You just live your life kind of in slow motion, and you live your life at maybe like, 50, 60, 70% of what your potential actually is because you're so damn tired all the time. And so I was just pumped up that was, I was finally going to get that fixed. I had a surgery set for March 15th to get that done. And then, basically it was after that was done, go full bore into the nationals. And, I was 100% confident that I was going to win that show for the first time in my life. Actually, I talk about the former me. I always had all this self-doubt and I was always unsure of myself. And, this was the first year where I was like actually 100% confident and I could say that and mean it. So, man, I was pumped up. That was my mindset at the time.
Okay. So let's talk about how that path that you were starting to go down after nationals in 2021, how that path kind of took a completely different direction. Like what happened, and kind of just start unpacking. I'm going to call it an awakening. I listened to your guys' you and Nick Gloss first episode of Going Deep podcast. You guys kind of touched on it some there. But I'm going to call it an awakening. And
Yeah.
we'll get more into the nitty gritty of that awakening here in a little bit, more details. But let's just talk about the altering of that path of going for your pro card again in 2022. How did that path get altered? Why did it get altered?
Yep. So March 15th, I show up, and my parents were visiting during that time too. They, not because I was having the surgery, it just so happened that they were down visiting and I'm like, oh, that'll be great. I'm having a surgery done just in case, I figured everything would be fine and whatnot, but it's always nice to have someone around, and I live alone. And so my dad went with me and we show up and they get me back to the room where they have you get in your gown and hook you up on an IV and everything. And we're sitting there, an hour goes by, 2 hours goes by, 3 hours goes by. And we're like, this is taking forever. 4 hours goes by. Finally, they come over and they're like, your surgeon thought the surgery was tomorrow. And I'm like, oh my God. So, of course, what do you do about it? You just laugh. But I remember I had texted somebody. I'm like, I don't have a good feeling about this. Like I think something bad's going to happen. And lo and behold, I come back the next day and I'm having this procedure done. And what ended up happening is during the procedure, I went into what's called SVT, supraventricular tachycardia, which just basically means your heart just kind of goes out of control. And my heart rate shot up over 200 like that. And when that happens, your body has to counter that by lowering its blood pressure. They said that the last number they saw was 50 over 25. And then at that point, obviously they had my surgeon just back off and, they ripped all the stuff off and they got the paddles out and they were getting ready to shock me. And right before that, I had came out of whatever you want to call it I was in, and my heart kind of caught back into rhythm on its own. The worst part of that is he was 90% done with the surgery, and they couldn't just, continue on from there. They had to pull everything out that he just installed because they didn't want to risk, the stuff being dirty and whatnot, and then closing me up and then sending me on my way and then getting infected and whatnot. So I still haven't had the surgery done. That's the worst part. So that was aborted. I woke up in this other room and there were people all around me, and I could tell they were doing an echocardiogram and they were just telling me that they had to abort the surgery. And that's all they told me at that point. And to be honest, they never told me really anything. And then they finally got me into the ICU, and I was in the ICU for 3 days. So come to find out, what I found out, well, part of what I found out was I had a really bad heart arrhythmia. And, and I knew that something was wrong with me for a long time. I just didn't want to say anything about it. And we can get into that. That's a whole separate topic if you want. But we found out I had a really bad heart arrhythmia, similar to AFib. People are usually familiar with that term. And so they tried to do what's called an ablation while I was in there, which is where they basically laser, they find wherever the problem is electricity wise going on, that's causing some kind of whatever disconnect that's causing the arrhythmia, and they zap it. And so they did that, but the guy wasn't able to find anything. I guess my heart didn't do. They were trying to recreate the situation that happened. So they were trying to recreate the SVT, but they couldn't. And they didn't. And my heart was actually in normal rhythm the whole time they tried to do the ablation. So I wake up, and then they made me just basically hang out there for 2 more days, I guess, to make sure I didn't die. They put me on an anti-arrhythmia medicine and sent me on my way. Meanwhile, this whole time I'm thinking like, well, what about my echocardiogram you guys are doing? What was my ejection fraction? Like, because I'm smart enough to understand the risks of bodybuilding and not even, I don't even want to say bodybuilding, just living the lifestyle and being a bigger person. I know the risk that can play on your heart. So I'm like, what did my echocardiogram look like? What was my ejection fraction? Because I'd always been worried about that the whole time. And they never, ever told me. And so luckily I'm smart enough. I went and found my own cardiologist and kind of told him what happened. And I'm like, I want an echo done. I want a cardiac MRI done. And luckily I found a guy that was like, I agree. And instead of, not listening or taking feedback like a lot of doctors, he let me, he listened to me. And so he sent me for all the testing. We started over, and come to find out I was in heart failure. So my ejection fraction was 31%. And, normal is 55, 60% usually. So this whole time I had this heart arrhythmia, and I was basically had a half strength heart. And so now I'm connecting the dots. So I'm like, all right, well, no wonder I've been feeling so shitty. Like, I've sleep apnea, I was in heart failure and a heart arrhythmia. And there were multiple occasions where I felt like I was having a heart attack, and I never said anything. The last one I had, I was at Ian and Melissa's house, and, it was kind of scary. So, that's basically what I found out. And that was in April of April of last year. I found all that out.
Okay, so I want to ask you, you said that for quite a while you've known that you've had some sort of heart issue, and you kind of kept it on the DL. Why did you kind of choose, Matt, to keep quiet about it? Was it just something you just kind of wanted to not really deal with, or talk about that for a minute, please?
So this is where like the depression ties into everything, and just the lack of self-love. It was because I knew that it was probably a heart failure type thing, and I knew bodybuilding was going to be over once I found that out. And in no way, shape, or form am I promoting that type of thinking. It's embarrassing, honestly, that I used to think that way. But I know that that's how a lot of guys think. And so if I'm being honest about it now, hopefully people will realize that's a ridiculous way to think, because I know a lot of guys think that way. They just bury their heads in the sand. And I was always like, well, I know something's probably wrong with me. I just hope that after something bad happens, I'm able to survive through it. And once that happens, then I'll be done bodybuilding. And lo and behold, that's exactly what happened. And, talk about the law of attraction. If you want to get there, and manifestation, I mean, I manifested that, versus the opposite complete way of thinking. But that's where the depression comes in, and your brain just doesn't work logically in a way that would make sense, like a normal person should think.
Yeah, right. Okay. Now, I guess maybe on one of your Instagram posts, or a couple of them after this incident, or however you kind of want to word that, again, I use the word awakening, and it seems like after that, we'll just say, I think it's fair to say, near death experience, you like there was like a complete 180 in your life. There was a complete shift. Like even some of the stuff that you were posting on Instagram and just what you were kind of talking about, like I could just see it, even though I saw a few things on your stories and, you know, you maybe posted a little bit about it, but I didn't really necessarily know what happened. I just knew there was something that happened, and like Matt was like completely shifting. There was a shift in your life, an awakening. So will you kind of, and you know, I've kind of heard you, I think maybe on your guys' podcast, talk a little bit about some spiritual type things. And so I want to go as deep as you want to go with this. And obviously faith for me is something's very important. So we can talk about God, Jesus, whatever you want to talk about, wherever you want to go with that. But I want to kind of know a little bit more, like some of the spiritual side of this journey that you've been on after the incident, because to me, that's a very valuable and important part of our human existence.
Well, I mean, it's the most important, right?
Yeah.
I can talk to you about this, and I think you can appreciate. I could tell you're like juiced up to hear about it, because I think probably, if not, as I had a situation that happened to me that caused an emotion that was so intense that it changed. It completely did shift my life and my energy completely. So I look at it as like, wow, that's like the luckiest thing that could have ever happened, because there's nothing more liberating that can happen in your life. I think the feeling of just kind of just knowing your role and seeing things and seeing the world and the universe in a completely different and flipped way. It's like, the best way I can explain it is like, do you have contacts or glasses or anything?
Yeah, I've got contacts in right now. Yep.
Okay, so when you go to the eye doctor and you look through the things and they're rotating it and they're like, how's it look? They're like blurry, clear. It's like blurry, 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 blurry. Holy shit, clear. I can see everything.
Yeah.
It's like that.
Mm.
So like my previous 36 years of existence, everything was blurry. Everything was foggy. I saw nothing clearly. And then all of a sudden that happens and it's like, holy shit. Here's something that I think you can appreciate. I just told you that was supposed to happen on March 15th, my surgery, right? Well, I show up March 16th. So as I'm very open about this. I've had suicidal ideation. I mean, since I was a kid, since I can remember, my earliest memories, man. And, I even have a couple, legitimate suicide attempts in my life. And then this happened. And it's like, I started sitting around, because you have a lot of time to really just kind of sit and think about shit. And I remember I was in the ICU bed, like at night, I'm 36 years old, 37. Yeah, I wasn't 37 yet. I'm 36 years old, sitting in here all alone with nobody to talk to in an ICU bed. And I almost just died, like, why am I not dead? You start thinking about this stuff. And then I went home and it's like, I've always been someone that believed in God, but I didn't really look into it other than that. It's like, well, yeah, I'm not so stupid to think that all of this came from nothing. Something cannot come from nothing. I think Einstein said that. And, but I've never really looked into it further than that. And so now I got all this time on my hands. Well, somewhat, because I was still working. I mean, I was doing check-ins in my ICU bed. There wasn't really anybody that knew that was going on other than the people that were like super close. Right. So, and the last thing I want is to like have my clients feel like they're a burden. So I just didn't tell any of them. But it removed bodybuilding completely from my life. Right. And so I kind of overcompensated and was kind of anti-bodybuilding for a little bit, in a sense that like, okay, I'm not even going to worry about eating, obviously not training, because I didn't feel good either, man. Like there was one night I stood up, and I get sidetracked a lot, so keep me on the path, Quentin. All right,
we're good.
But one night, man, and this happened a lot after I got out of the hospital, I got up to go to the bathroom, And for about 2 years, when I'd go from sitting to standing, I'd always get lightheaded. I get head rush. And I just keep walking. You just keep walking through it, and then it goes away. So that was normal. So I got up, but this time it was so bad. I dropped and I got this like the worst high ankle sprain of my life because my leg just buckled. I smashed my head on the floor. I mean, dude, it knocked me out. Like I was out. And so, and that happened, a couple of times after that. This is where I need your help to keep me on track. Where was I going?
Well, I want you just to kind of continue to talk about kind of like
Oh no, I got it.
Okay.
I got
Okay.
it. So I'm saying I have all this time on my hands. So like I'm spending a lot of time in my apartment, right? And when I wasn't working, I'm like, let me look into God and Jesus and whatnot. I know my name's Matthew, right? And Matthew means a gift from God. Maybe there's something here. And then I don't remember what happened, but I was reading the book of Matthew, and the Matthew 3:16 is the verse that represents Jesus being baptized by John the Baptist in the Jordan River, right? And that's basically, baptism, and then a dove ascended upon him, the heavens opened above him. That's what happened when Jesus was baptized. That's what it says. And now I told you that surgery happened was supposed to be, I showed up March 15th, but it ended up happening on March 16th. So 3:16. Matthew 3:16 represents what I just told you. That's the day that Jesus began his mission on earth. That's the day I almost died. My name is Matthew. And when I read that, dude, just like, and I've had multiple things that have happened since then, synchronization, if you want to call it that, or synchronicities, where you just get this overwhelming, I don't even know what it was, but you just start bawling. And it was just like, it just kind of makes you, I think that's the universe, if you want to call it that. I don't care what you want to call it, God, creator, universe. I don't affiliate with any type of, with church or religion. That's just, I don't feel like I need to. But those are, I kept having those feelings over and over, and I just kept having little things happen after that would give me that feeling for about, I don't know, a 2-3 month period. And it was just like, whoa, and I probably weirded a lot of people out because it was so exciting, and that's all I wanted to talk about. People will probably get weirded out by this, but I don't really care because I know what I saw, I know what I felt. And I've been on the other side too, where you don't feel any of those things, and you're numb, and you're depressed, and you're so disconnected from yourself. And so now, you flip that, and I'm like just seeing life in this whole new way. It's pretty exciting. And so now I see the world different. I feel like I have a purpose greater than ever, and I'm someone that needs to have that purpose greater than myself, to help me feel joy.
Yeah.
And that's essentially what happened. Is I just spent time and I still do it every day, man. That's just the way I am. I immerse myself in learning. If I'm not working, I'm reading, or I'm listening to something. Because I think as humans, we've got 3 parts to us, right? We have mind, body, soul. And if you're not taking care of all 3, you're not living to your full potential. And I wasn't taking care of any of the 3. So at least now I started taking care of my mind. I feel like I've taken care of my soul, because I feel like you can have like a broken soul. I think that's what depression is. I think you see someone that's chronically depressed, that's just their soul that's just crushed. And they have to do some of the things that I'm doing. And the reason why, I just want to say real quick why I don't go to church. If people go to church, I think that's fantastic. If you benefit from it and it makes you feel better and it's helping you live a more prosperous life, by all means, that's amazing. It at least gets you in a place where it's full of like-minded people, right? Like, I think that's positive. I just don't see a need for it for myself, because All I know is it's a historical fact that Jesus was real.
Mhm.
It's a historical fact that he was baptized, and it's a historical fact that he was crucified.
Mm.
That's all I need to know. And I know, and you can say that he's God's only son. I'm totally fine with that. I believe that. I believe, obviously, that there is a God or a creator. I think you can tie that into the universe. There's laws and secrets of the universe. Um, and I think that that's mainly what Jesus was trying to spread. And I think I know that Jesus was real. I know those facts that I just mentioned, and I know that I love everything that Jesus represents, which I think is just peace, love, joy, and happiness. And that's what I think people need to understand, and that's really all they need. That's all that matters.
Mm.
You know, everything in between that is all just noise. You know, people are like, and that's why, like, I'll read the Bible, but I'm not uh you know, the Bible is very helpful because it's a library of different books that basically gives you a blueprint full of metaphors on how to react to any situation that you're going to run into in life. And it helps you handle those things, and you can take those lessons and interpret them and apply them to your life. And I think that's amazing too. And I think that all of the division that religion has caused is unfortunate, but they're all of the main religions are all kind of saying the same thing. So I think when you view things like that, and then I really went down a rabbit hole of like ancient Egyptians and what they're into, because I find, you know, civilization at that time very interesting. And it's like, then I ran into what's called the Hermetic principles. uh Hermes created those. That's things like the law of vibration, the law of correspondence. The law of vibration is probably the most important one, in my opinion. Once you understand what that means, then you can understand where the law of attraction comes from. And you know, you talk about how, you know, that's, then you understand like what your vibe is, because everybody understands like people have energy, because that's what we are, is we're just balls of energy, right? And balls of energy can be measured by, you know, what we call frequency. You can manipulate energy with frequency. So you've got your like people that are super depressed. Those are just like low frequency people, or people that are always like bitching and complaining and pissed off. Like those are low frequency people. And then you have people like Brooke Walker, who's a very high frequency person, right? Like, and those are that's people want to be around that. And those people generally manifest greatness. And you can look at any top athlete, and I mean, there's an argument that, you know, that they're more narcissistic in nature than normal people too. But regardless, they're high frequency people. You know, nothing penetrates, you know, nothing negative can even penetrate their head. So once you understand things like that, it just helps you, like, you just see things different, and everything becomes so insignificant. Like all of the shit that you run to daily, I just kind of sit back now, and it's just, everything to me is in slow motion. And when you see things like that, it gives you a sense of calmness and peace. And I just call it being unfuckable with now. So that's kind of what I've been up to, man. I'm obsessed with being able to control your mind and your thoughts, and how powerful your thoughts are, and recognizing that and fixing it and correcting it. And that's what I'm just trying to help other people do it now.
Love it, man. Cool. Okay, so setting aside bodybuilding, I mean, literally, I mean, from a very young age, I mean, you competed as a teenager and stuff, and all these years through adulthood, I mean, that's really all you've kind of known is bodybuilding. So setting that aside and being free from bodybuilding, can you talk about that for a little bit? Because I think there was probably some sort of you know, you kind of talked about being free earlier, but was some of that freedom just being able to walk away from bodybuilding and basically divorcing bodybuilding and being free from all the anxiety and the depression and all the just the negativeness that's been kind of built up within your bodybuilding career?
Yeah, man. And I'd be lying to say that it wasn't hard for a little bit. You know, I had a bit of an identity crisis for sure. But the spiritual awakening is the part that literally saved me. Without that, without that, it would have obviously been a lot harder, you know, because people were checking on me because they know, like, you know, I have a history of depression and stuff. And I think a lot of the people closest to me were super worried that it's like, well, now that's over. Shit, what's he gonna do? And and it did, of course it bothered me because it was that part of my life is instantly over. You know, like that was one of the most, if not the most important thing to me personally, my entire adult life. And now it's gone. I can't do it anymore. And so what I did is I made myself as busy as possible. I actually started working for Raw and Revive full time, as well as coaching full time. So I'm like, well, the worst thing I can do, I know myself. And this is where it comes down to just, you making it. Sometimes your will, just like me, my will is stronger than anything else. And my ability to identify like my own patterns is also very good. So I'm like, I know myself and I can't allow myself to just isolate in my apartment, because that's what I'll do. And that's the worst thing I think you can do when you go through something like that, that could impact you negatively. And so I just was like, I'm going to make myself so busy that I don't even have time to think, at least for now.
Yeah.
Right. And I did that for a while, and I'm glad I did that, because that helped. That got me to be like, get to a point where I didn't even think about it. And then I'd get home at night and I would just do some of the things that we're talking about and look into that stuff. And that's what I'd spend my free time doing. And what I still spend most of my free time doing is learning about whatever, just learning something. And I think that learning is important. That's another thing I wanted to say, is a lot of people that are depressed. What is depression? It's living in the past. It's constantly ruminating and thinking about things in the past. And if you have, you know, around 100,000 thoughts a day, which is what they say we have, and you spend 80% of your time ruminating and thinking about past experiences, that's 80% of your thoughts, or 80,000 thoughts a day of that are negative. You know, that's going to impact you. And so the key to that is living in the present. And the key to happiness, which happiness is really just an acute feeling. I don't think you can really sustain happiness, but you can sustain at least, you know, being pleasant and having a pleasant life. I think that's sustainable. But how you get there is just being present in the moment, and not being somewhere else. Like, you know, when we're having a conversation right now, we're both like in this, and that's like feels good to people. People need to do more of that, instead of like everyone's so connected to like everything and everybody else around them and what's going on around them, that they're like completely disconnected from themselves. And so if you can just fix that one thing, and how you do that is you learn, and that's where reading comes in, or listening to something productive. Like, take the time to learn. And then when you learn something, and that's why I started posting, what you noticed probably in my stories is, for a while I went on a tangent. I haven't done it. I don't do it as much anymore, but because I haven't been writing as much. But for a while I would just sit and I would think, and I would just write. And I have all of this stuff and notes of stuff that I've just written, of thoughts. And those are those things that I share. And I do that. And I think that's important, because that forces you to be present, especially if you're by yourself. Like, if you're someone alone, and like, what are you going to do? You're going to turn on Netflix, and then you're going to sit there and you're going to ruminate about what you wish your life was like, or you wish you could go back and change this. Well, instead of doing that, read something valuable and learn something. And then that forces you to be present in that moment. And you do that over and over and over and over and over and over and over. Then you change your thinking pattern. If you change your thinking pattern, you can start actually, you know, living your life and being present. So that's how you get out of the cycle, I think, in my opinion. Whatever I was talking about, or what you asked me before that, I have no idea now.
That's okay. Just I want to wrap up basically the divorce from bodybuilding. So you said, you go ahead.
Okay. So and I went through that phase, and I just completely stopped training, right? well, for a while, because my cardiologist was like, let's just worry about, just chill. Like, you've been through a lot. Let's take a couple months and just let your heart, let's get your, and this guy was awesome too, by the way. I love my cardiologist. He was very, very confident that we'd get my heart strength back very quickly. And he did put me on 3 different medications to do that. And he told me to just kind of hang out. And I'm like, all right, well, so yes, I did completely divorce myself from bodybuilding. But it also helped me, the spiritual awakening helped lessen the importance of bodybuilding in my mind. So I was more able to divorce it easily, because then it's like, wow, that was really not as important as I thought it was to me. And that was probably part of my problem of why I was never really like, I always say I was like a part-time bodybuilder. You know, I'd turn it on certain times of the year, but I was never fully, I didn't even like it anymore. I was just doing it because I was attaching success to that, to my overall as a human, to my success in that. Or I was basing my entire self-worth off of my success in that. And once I realized that that's completely silly, it made me like let go of it a lot easier. But what that did was then it freed up the time where it's like, well, now I can just put all this into my clients. So it did make me a million time better coach. And anybody that competes and coaches like full time at like a very high level says the same thing. Like, once you stop competing, you know, not that you have, I'm not saying you have to completely stop taking care of yourself, which is what I kind of did, which is not good. It's just the only way I knew how to do it at the time. It does at least free up that, like you were saying, that stress and that anxiety and the sense of urgency that you put on, oh, I got to get my meals in, and I got to go to the gym at this time, and just lining your day up perfectly, plus trying to do the best job you can coaching. It's tough. So when you completely get rid of that and all you have to focus on is that, I mean, my coaching immediately, I mean, it got a lot better. That was the best year I've ever had, coaching wise. And so now, you know, this year will be really my first full year of being, you know, just having this whole new outlook and having all of this, my time and energy, and that I can spend and put into my athletes, and be completely present with them and be there for them in every way possible that they need, and just trying to get the most out of them and figuring that out. That's where I'm at. So I'm super excited for that this year. And I think what happened to me was just a thing where it's like, all right, well, maybe, you know, I wasn't meant, obviously, to be a bodybuilder myself, but it was the experience of everything I went to and being a bodybuilder that led me to be able to be the best coach that I can be. And I fully believe that I'm going to go on for the next 10, 20, 30, however many years I want to do this, and be amongst the best in the world at it.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely, man. I've had a handful of your athletes. Sometimes I knew they were your athletes. Sometimes I didn't. It just came up in our conversation, but I've had a handful of your athletes on, Matt, and you know, it's just, and I'm not saying this to puff you up. I'm just saying it to kind of correlate what you were just saying about being one of the best coaches in the world. It's like when you have your athletes come on, you know, and they just have nothing but, you know, great words to say. And the thing that comes up is how great of a human being you are, how good of a guy you are. And I think that is really this awakening and kind of this story of Matt Burzacott now, the season of life that you're in now. It's more about the person, right? As opposed to being this thing, this bodybuilder, or even this coach, or whatever social media tries to paint you as, or whatever. It's about the human experience. It's not about what we do or what we've been or whatever all that stuff is. Because like you said, we have a soul, man, and there's so much more to life than the physical that we are going through from the day to day. I'm only going to say one thing about the Bible, but it's so true. It's so powerful. There's several scriptures in the Gospels. I think one of them is in Matthew, the other one's in Luke. But it says, what good is it if a man gains the whole world and yet loses his own soul? that verse, whether you're consider yourself religious or a person of faith or not, or into Christianity or not, if you take just that, you can call it a verse, that quote, statement, whatever, Jesus said it. But if you just ponder and allow that to, really, sit deep
Resonate.
within your soul, it's so powerful, man. What good is it if you have everything that this world has to offer, the money, the fame, the females or the males, whatever, but at the end of the day, if you don't have your soul, if you lose your soul, like, you've lost everything. So now I want to transition a little bit into the coaching. Let's talk a little bit more about that. You're going into your first year as a full-time, fully focused coach. So how do you feel like what you went through last year has and will continue to make you like a better coach and just a better human?
Well, the biggest thing that I think I do different now versus all the years, and I did this a little bit leading up to now, but not as in depth as I do now. And the thing I do different than probably most everybody else that's coaching is, dude, I'm just really getting it. You can ask any of them. Like, I'm getting, if the window's there, I don't pry like into people's things too much, but I can tell you, out of the 70, 75 people I have, probably 65, 70 of them are telling me more than just bodybuilding stuff. There's some people that I have that, that very few that are like robots, and it's just like, tell me what to eat and train. I don't want to talk about anything else. But that's like 5 or 10, out of 75, So what that tells me, and it goes along with, if you just look at the facts, like, antidepressants are the most prescribed drug in America, I believe. So what I'm talking about is extremely common. Other people are just too scared to talk about it because they don't want to be labeled or looked at as being weak or mentally ill or whatever you want to flip the term as. So, but I can tell you that what this has done is me being open about it. I make people, like my athletes and people that I'm in close contact with, comfortable enough to talk to me about whatever it is they want to talk to me about. And while I may not have the most like highest level athletes, I think that I would be, if you looked at it on an individual basis of achieving success per individual, if you broke that percentage down, I would say that I'm easily amongst one of the highest as far as getting people to where they need to go. So getting people results, I would say that I'm amongst the best there. And how I am able to do that is, what I've realized is, this really comes down to, are these people following what I'm asking them to do, or are they not? And when people aren't getting results, it's usually because the coach doesn't have all the information they need. And with that being said, a lot of coaches will be like, well, I'm not a therapist. And I'm not saying that I am a therapist, but what I am saying is if you treat people like humans, and, they got something going on in their lives, and there's just so many different facets that go into what we're trying to do with bodybuilding and with the body, like, where the mind goes, your body goes, right? And everybody knows this is a fact. You can follow your plan and everything in your training and everything perfectly. But if you're someone that's chronically stressed out, which is also what depression is, whether it's depression or anxiety, it's some form of stress. And if that's chronic and happening all the time, it hijacks your entire system and nothing you do works. And so what this has enabled to do is, at least people are open with me. It's like, hey, yeah, I followed this week, but not this. So really all I have now is the information I need to know if what they're currently doing needs to be changed or if it doesn't. I also think that them just feeling comfortable, like they've got someone in their corner that really gives a shit, is really soothing and comforting, and it helps them buy into the process. And so that's where I feel like this has helped me just learn how to like take empathy to a whole new level, and just being more aware of how other people are feeling, and then letting them know that they can share whatever's going on. And sometimes that's all people need too, is they just need to just sit the time to type it out and talk about what's going on, and then they feel better too. If you do that once a week, it is a form of therapy.
Yeah.
So I just try to help people like get their mind healthy first, first and foremost, and that comes with just caring about people as a human being, and then obviously we're taking care of all the other things physically that we're supposed to be doing within the body. But all my people know that they can talk to me about that stuff, and I'm pretty comfortable in knowing each one. Like I have a personal relationship with every single person I have, and that kind of just develops over time. And I think also too, most of the people now are doing their research, and they can tell that's kind of what I'm like. So it's kind of like self selection. I'm getting people that are aligned with me, and I'm super excited about it because I've got a roster full of people that I like interacting with on a daily basis.
What's your do you have like an ultimate goal or vision for yourself, Matt, in terms of coaching? Like, do you want to have somebody win the Open Men's Olympia, or what's kind of like that long-term goal for you in terms of the business side of coaching?
So that would be like what we were talking about earlier. That's kind of like the pop culture, cool, superficial side of things, right?
Yeah.
And while I'm not going to say like, oh no, I don't care about winning the Olympia, absolutely, I'd love to win the Olympia, but it means more to have someone like Brooke Walker and win the Olympia with someone like her that I am aligned with, and I know how much this means to her, and why she's into it, and why she's into bodybuilding. So to win something with her would mean more than just winning an Olympia. Winning an Olympia would be great, but winning an Olympia with her, and I'm just using her as a specific example because that's the one person I have that has a chance to win an Olympia. But having those type of personal wins, man, that is, I mean, dude, I started a group chat just so I could make like announcements and stuff easier. And what that turned into was almost every single person I had went in and like basically gave a testimony of how I you knew I'd cry at some point, I'm sure.
Okay, man, it's good. It's good.
Basically of how I changed their life. And so to me, like that's way more important than saying like I got this guy and he won the Olympia, and that's 100% genuine, but without, would I love to win the Olympia? Absolutely. We all would.
Cool. Okay. So transitioning a little bit into you are now a coach under Integrated Muscle and Health, which is Austin Stout's brand or company, however you kind of word that. Talk a little bit about your relationship with Austin. I've had him on the podcast, worked with him a little bit behind the scenes with some gut health stuff. Really cool guy. Definitely seems like a guy that has, those morals and those values, and has a very clear vision of his life and his coaching and all that. Had some of his athletes on, and they spoke just like with you very highly of him. So talk about getting connected with Austin and now being a coach under the Integrated Muscle and Health coaching brand or coaching team, again, however you politically correct word that. So
yeah. So another thing I started doing after that all happened last year in my learning phase, making myself as busy as possible. So basically working 2 full-time jobs. I also was like, well, I have a good understanding, obviously, of the body and physiology and anatomy, a really good understanding, but not like Austin. And I'm really into functional medicine. And really all that means, for people that don't know what that means, is that just means you like getting to the root of issues and taking care of it versus masking symptoms with drugs, if you want to keep it to like modern day medicine. So, and that doesn't mean like, I think functional medicine gets a bad rap because then people think like, well, they don't believe in drugs at all. And that's not what I'm saying. But what I am saying is you don't need to go to the doctor if you're 300 pounds and you have diabetes and depression and just to just get on an SSRI. You need to work with somebody, you know, to get to the root of those issues. Let's do that versus taking insulin and an SSRI, right? So that's what I'm saying. And so I hired Austin to mentor me on that kind of stuff because he has a whole education system already set up. So I just got emerged in that around that time. Shortly after that, maybe like June, I think, around there of last year. And the way that the thing I love about Austin is he is brilliant, but you know, the most brilliant people have a way of simplifying things to make sense of it. And so he sends me over the material. I would read it over. There'd be, you know, he'd send 3, 4, 5. And he spaces it out nicely, so it's not too overwhelming. He sends you one, you'd read it, you digest it, and then you're on. He sends you the next one, and then after a few, we do a call to talk about if I have any questions to make sure I fully understand anything. And we're just going over basically every system of the human body. But he also does a really good job at only teaching you the things that you really need to know, especially within the bodybuilding. It's tailored more for like the people I work with too. So, you know, how do you take care of women and keep them healthy, you know, as healthy as possible while competing? A little different than men. So just knowing these things and how to help our certain population stay as healthy as possible, and just having this knowledge of how these systems work and how everything's work can better help me to make informed decisions amongst my own process to make it as optimal as possible for everybody. And so, you know, I really, between doing that and all the other stuff that we've already talked about, I feel like I'm very well equipped overall to help anybody. And that's what I mean when I say get the most out of the person, you know, coach the person, not the process. Is now I'm equipped with, you know, knowledge of the body and everything there and everything behind the scenes that goes into making these decisions, where before I just was doing all the things I'm doing now. I just didn't know the reasonings behind it. Now I know the reasonings, and I can help people's minds be healthy too. And it's been Austin's been very helpful in that process.
And so then when did you kind of join forces with Austin and become a part of kind of his team?
About a month and a half ago. So right at the new year, basically. Cool. He had been mentoring me at that point, you know, for what, 6-7 months. And, you know, I had mentioned, you know, kind of just veering off and doing my own thing. And he kind of took an opportunity, was like, well, hey man, I'm actually, you know, I can't really take anybody else on at the moment, and I need somebody to refer people to, but I don't, you know, there's not really anybody I trust. And, you know, I saw that as a huge, I mean, that was a big deal to me, because he's someone that's so brilliant and smart in my eyes, and not just textbook. Austin's very smart socially too. And he's, you know, he's good at communicating, and he's just a very well-rounded individual that's character over everything. Yeah. You know, he's character over everything. And he is what he says he is. Yeah. You know, what you see is what you get. There's no smoke and mirror with Austin. And, you know, so we did bond. And then the fact that he asked me that if I would, you know, join alongside him, because he needed someone to send, especially male bodybuilders to, or competitors that he could trust, that he knew was going to take care of their health. You know, he wanted to be aligned with someone like that. And so for me, it was a no-brainer. I'm like, well, it's an honor that someone like you thinks that I'm smart enough to to do that. So it was kind of a no-brainer. So we chose to align, and that started kind of the first of the year.
Okay, cool, man. So we're going to start finishing up here, Matt, but I want to touch on a couple more things. Now, in terms of kind of like all of your studying in regards to, the mentorship with Austin and kind of more of the holistic health side of things, what is there something that kind of stands out, or a couple things that you really didn't know about that you feel like you did learn during this mentorship or over the last, let's say, 6 or 8 months that's maybe helped you as a coach? Because I know you said that you knew most of the stuff, but now you just kind of know maybe why you're doing it, as opposed to just saying, hey, do this. Now you kind of know the why, but have you learned a couple like new things that you had no clue about? If so, what are those things?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think the biggest thing I learned, which will come full circle on this again, is how much stress. Now I know the science behind what stress does to the body in these different pathways. We know what we were talking about earlier of why it's so important and why it's helped me so much to be able to relate to my athletes and help them be mentally healthy first. Because now I understand scientifically and physiologically what stress is doing to the body and how that hijacks all these systems and interrupts everything. Mm. So kind of learning that in reverse, or I guess from the inside out, like we all know that stress kills, or your thoughts can make you sick. We all know that. But now I've seen and understand the physiology behind that. Mm. So it just reinforced, why it's so important, I think, for a coach and an athlete to have a relationship where there's at least, something, at some kind of personal level, to just care about the person at minimum. And being able, that's just how important, having a healthy mind goes into bodybuilding and being the best bodybuilder you can be, because it makes everything work. Like stress hijacks everything so that you're not working efficiently. There's going to be a problem somewhere. If you're chronically stressed out. And so it just kind of reinforced that for me.
Okay, cool. Okay, so you kind of had this season where you kind of just threw yourself into work and learning and things like that. Now, have you kind of like, have you kind of come back full circle in terms of maybe, are you doing some sort of movement every day, or are you kind of getting back into more of the physical side of things? Like, talk about you making yourself or creating yourself kind of into the healthiest version of yourself, kind of like full mind, body, and spirit. Have you kind of gotten to that point, or are you still just focus on the mind, spirit at this point?
Damn, you're good. No, I'm back. So one thing I started doing that we didn't talk about is yoga.
Cool. Okay.
I got into doing yoga. I have a good friend from actually back home in Iowa. He doesn't live in Iowa anymore. It's a pretty cool story. I had him on the podcast. When that's finished being edited, we'll throw it on, because he's got, talk about overcoming obstacles, man. Like this, it's whew. And yoga is what saved him. And yoga gets this rap of like being this like bullshit that this foo-foo bullshit that only like rich soccer moms go to while their husbands are at work type thing, right? And that's not what yoga is at all. Yoga teaches you basically how to meditate and be present in the moment and do all the things that I'm talking about. Yeah. And so I called my friend up. His name is Matt, too, go figure. And he actually flew down here and, taught me yoga, because he's one of the best. He won't say this, but I'll say it for him. He's one of the top yogis in the world. Wow. He was initiated by Sadhguru, if you know who that is by chance. Anyways, so he came and taught me yoga. So I got going on that. Like, I stopped weighing myself. The last number I saw on the scale was 220. And it got to the point where like, I'm glad you asked me this question, because it got to the point where I got so far away from taking care of myself and so immersed in coaching and all these other things, that then I noticed I started to get kind of like resentful and like in a bad mood. So I'm like, now I got to to your point, all right, my mind's taken care of, but now my mind's starting to suffer. My spirit, I feel like I've got that under control, but my body, I'm completely neglecting. And now who am I? Like, I don't want to be a hypocrite. Like, why am I not going to take care of myself anymore? I love myself. Let me take care of that part too. And so he came out, I learned yoga. And then from there, I was like, you know what? I do kind of miss lifting weights. And it got to the point also too, where, dude, I'd take a shower. I wouldn't even look at myself in the mirror. Like, I just hated my body. And I'm like, well, let's at least change that. I want to at least want to be able to look in the mirror and be like, okay, I like how I look. And of course, I know how to do that.
Yeah.
So for me, I fell back in love with just the process of training again, and that feeling and what that feeling gives you while you're in the gym, and of those endorphins. And that's very important to do on a regular basis, just for our mental health as well, and to just do something for myself. Everybody says it and it's cliche, but things are cliche because they're true, is you can't show up for others unless you are taking care of yourself fully. Like, right, you can't fully show up for others. And so that's absolutely true. And so I have, the last couple months gotten back into going to the gym regularly. I have a whole routine now, dude. It's like, where, I don't know if I mentioned this on the last one, but when I lived with Gloff, and before that time in my life, dude, I never woke up before noon. Dude, I would sleep till 2 p.m.
Wow.
But I'd be up all night.
Yeah.
So I used to just be like, God, if I could just wake up in the morning like a normal person. Like, that's how far gone I was. Yeah. Like, looking back, I was just living life, just not even living life. That's not even living. Yeah. So now I've got a whole routine that I go through every single day. It's like I'm preparing to play in a game every single day now. So I have my routine where, I get up and I get in the sun, and I'll get outside, and then I'll do my yoga, and then I'll take a shower. I have a routine now where I'm taking care of myself. Nice. I'm taking my health supplements. I'm not eating McDonald's 3 times a day. I still do eat McDonald's sometimes, but for the most part, I'm eating better and taking care of myself better now that I'm not a bodybuilder. I'm doing all the things that I should have been doing the whole time I was a bodybuilder. Now,
what's your go-to at McDonald's, Matt?
It's a good question. Double quarter pounder, a large fry, and then I usually get like a double cheeseburger with it. And believe it or not, the chocolate chip cookies. Yeah. If you ask them to bake them warm, they will, by the way.
Oh, really? Okay.
McDonald's
are they better than Subway cookies?
I think so. Warm. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's pretty good, man. Those Subway cookies are hard to beat, man. At least the Subway cookies in Iowa. I don't know how they are in Florida. Probably the same, but
yeah, they're the same.
I know, man. I just
try the McDonald's cookies warm and let me know.
Okay, well, it'll probably be a long time before I have a McDonald's cookie, just to be straight with you. But
okay, good for you.
I can't remember the last time it's been a long time since I had anything McDonald's, but
good
anyways, okay, man. You were back, I think, here just around the holiday season back in Iowa. Did you have a good time with family and stuff? How was that? Don't you have you have a new niece or nephew or something I saw?
Yeah, a new nephew. So
cool.
my niece just turned 3.
Cool.
January 2nd, and then my nephew was just born last week.
Cool.
So I got to get I'll be going back home soon again. But to answer your question, yeah, it's always good to get back home, because that's another thing, is once you view the world differently in this new outlook, and you go home and spend time with family, it has this whole new this whole new meaning, especially when there's kids and babies involved.
Yeah.
And so to answer, I mean, it's beyond a good time. I don't even know what the right word would be. It's just it's soul healing, you know, to be around family at this phase of your life, you know.
Well, and it's also, I mean, you're down there in Florida and stuff, and I mean, Des Moines kind of a quote unquote bigger city, kind of where you're from, but it's just a slower pace of life here in
Yeah.
Iowa, and I'm assuming, because I've lived in a lot of different places, it's just kind of a different vibe, different people, different outlook. I mean, I know when I moved back from Denver back to Iowa, it's like, you're driving in Iowa, like on a back road, and you pass somebody on the highway or whatever, like people like wave at you in Iowa. Like just the other day I was driving, and how the guys drive with one hand and then they put up one finger, to wave. Yep. And I just kind of look over, and I'm always so late because I'm not used to it. I don't want to be a jerk and just drive by, but you know what I'm saying? It's just different.
Well, I know exactly, dude.
So.
I know exactly what you're saying, because that happened to me as I was leaving like the gym parking lot while I was back home.
Yeah.
The guy did it, the finger, and I was like I was like, oh shit, wait, because I'm so like being down here, I've completely lost that type of friendliness.
Right.
Because nobody down here does that. Everybody,
no.
Yeah. Everybody's in a rush and pissed off.
Yeah.
And so, I almost wanted to like crank it in reverse and be like, I'm so sorry. Hello. Yeah.
Yeah. I like to say the only finger you're going to get in a bigger city or anywhere outside of Iowa is the middle finger when you're driving. Right. So
absolutely. Yeah.
Anyways, but I think I think we're going to wrap it up there, Matt. That was, I think that was just great catching up, man. We kind of got the full story of last year. And what's anything that's kind of on your mind outside of just like the coaching stuff and taking that to another level for this new year? Anything else that you want to kind of leave us with? Any thoughts, anything that you've learned, anything that you want us to kind of ponder just for 2023?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing, I posted this the other day, is I think the main thing that holds everybody back, I know at least the main thing that held me back, if talking about getting to the root of issues, it's two things. It's most people have a lack of self-love. I think you can trace back any type of issue that you're having. If you really sit and think about it and trace it back to the root, it's usually that. Or the other greatest limiting factor that we have as humans is just our weakness of attention, is what I posted. And you could say, well, what does that mean? Like paying attention? And it's like, well, yeah, that's what I'm saying. I mean, like paying attention to what's in front of you. You know what I mean? Even you recognize, like most people, when they're having a conversation with you, especially people that have a lot of problems whether it's anxiety or depression, you can sit there in a one-on-one setting with them and have a conversation with them, but you can tell they're not there.
Right.
They're not present.
Right.
That's weakness of attention. Like you and I are having a conversation right now, and you're listening and you're like abstracting what I'm saying. Most people have lost that ability. That's what I'm saying, is they're connected. They're overly connected and overstimulated, and there's too much information in their brain all the time that they never take the time to pay attention to what's in front of them.
Right.
And I think and that's also why people just continue on with the lack of self-love, because they don't sit there in their thoughts and abstract them and dissect them and figure out, well, most people I think most people are like, well, I'm super self-aware. It's like, okay, that's one part of it. You're aware of, at least you can say what you're bad at and you know what your issues are, but then what are you doing about it? They're not doing anything about it, because they just go on about their lives and they stay in, toxic relationships, or they come home and just watch TV and get drunk, or use drugs to escape problems. And what did depressed people usually do? Depressed people usually sleep, because it takes so much energy. One, having all of that rumination going through your brain all the time, it exhausts you. And two, you don't want to take the energy to sit down and unpack all of your shit. So having awareness is part of it, but then what do? That's when will comes in, and that's when you have to really force yourself and like train yourself like a dog to just sit in it and evaluate your emotions, unpack them, think about them, and get to the root of where they're at. And that all starts with having the will and the strength to pay attention.
Excellent.
So I think that would be, if anybody can take one thing away from this at all, I would say that work on that one thing. If you work on that one thing, I think a lot of other areas of your life will start to clean up.
Awesome, Matt. All right, man. Once again, I just want to say thanks for coming on, dude, and being vulnerable and transparent, and just catching us up to speed with all things Matt Burzacott. Okay, I'll do a quick outro. I'll let you go. What's your Instagram, and is that the best way for anybody to connect with you out there in the social media realm?
Yeah, it's just my name, Matt Burzacott, Matt.Burzacott, and then my email is just mattburzacott@gmail.com.
Okay. I just, that reminds me, dude, I was laughing pretty hard the other day when I got on Instagram and you said, I don't know, you posted up a picture of a client and you said something like, I've been too busy working instead of like Instagramming or something, but here's a client update. What was that about? I was laughing. That was great.
Oh, I just said I've been too busy coaching and not Instagramming.
Oh, there we go. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Which, lately, like Instagram is not the first thing on my mind. Like it's really not. And, it's kind of like, I go in rampages where it's like, okay, I've got some time to like, I'm either kind of putting a lot of stuff up or I'm not on it for days.
Yeah. Or weeks.
Yeah. Or weeks. Yeah. But luckily I'm at a point in my career where I don't, I'm at a steady, I don't really need to do it to continue to drum up business. So I kind of just will go on there and throw up things as I truly have time to do it. I think Instagram can be a great place.
I do too.
There's a lot of really good stuff on there. It just depends on what you're looking at and what you're following.
Yeah, for sure. All right, Matt, really appreciate it, man. I'll do a quick outro. I'll let you go. Okay.
All right, buddy.
All right. All of you who are tuning into another episode of Behind the Muscle podcast, I just want to say thank you so very much. If you guys have not done so already, please make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel, Behind the Muscle podcast. And then also, please take this episode with Matt, share it on your Instagram stories. Make sure you tag Matt, tag Behind the Muscle podcast so that we know that you listened specifically to this episode and found great value in it, in which I know you did. And then finally, I will leave you all with this. Remember, behind the muscle, there's always a story. We'll catch you guys later.